Welcome back to the channel. It's a beautiful day and it's time to get started on the framing of our cabin. I know you all have been wondering what kind of cabin we're building, and what we're building here is an A-frame cabin. The floor plan of this cabin measures 32 feet by 24 feet, but considering the dimensions of the walls and how it's an A-frame, inside dimensions will roughly equate to 600 square feet, and we'll also have a loft which equates to roughly 250 square feet, which will allow for 2 more bedrooms upstairs. I know it looks really deceiving on camera, like this is a huge floor plan, but really with the bottom floor only being roughly 600 square feet after we get the walls on, it's only double the size of the square footage of the RV. And then we'll have the loft upstairs, which is still smaller square footage than what the RV is. We chose to go with this size because if we decide to have children in the future, we'll have the 2 additional bedrooms. If we had no plans to have children, we probably would have gone smaller than this. Over the last year and a half, we have considered a ton of different options for this cabin, but we decided to go with the A-frame style because 1, the scale of this cabin is buildable for just Chris and I to do ourselves without hiring additional help, and 2, it fits within our budget. So we're going to take advantage of this gorgeous day. There's no mosquitoes out here. It's about 65 degrees. So let's get started on our framing and see what we can get done today.
Sketchy.
A little bit, I'd say.
It was just so uneven over there.
I know, and that's so heavy.
We already have these marked at a perfect 16 feet because all the boards are slightly longer than 16 feet. So what we're doing is we're lining our template up. Once it's lined up with the 16-foot mark, we can draw our degree mark, which is where it will sit against the floor or the floor plate. So we should be able to trace it out. That's going to be a lot faster than finding the degree every time.
Yeah. So what we just did is build a template for all of our A's. We have to have an A every 16 inches on center for the entire 32-foot length of the building, and that means there are a lot of A's that we have to build. So we made a template for all of the lumber so that way we don't have to measure everything and find our angles every time. So what we did is use a triangle calculator to find all of our angles, and then we built a template for all of our angles at the bottom that'll be sitting on the floor, and for our top angle all the way at the top. Our A's span 24 feet across the length of the building, and at the top of the peak over here it reaches 25 feet 4 inches. Now that we're done this template, we can quickly knock out all of the cutting that we have to do for all of our A's, and we're also going to build a template for our floor joist that'll go here in the center, as well as our rafter tie up here at the top.
So what we're creating here is a collar tie, and this will also act as our ceiling in the inside of the loft, which will give us a 10-foot ceiling in the loft as well as a 10-foot ceiling downstairs. This pretty much finishes up our template. Now we just have a ton of cutting to do. Now we have this all figured out. We just have to recreate it about 25 times. one might.
We don't want to use it at all.
Look where it's cracked in the middle.
What we're doing right now is pulling a bunch of these 16 footers that we had left over from the flooring and putting them up onto our platform there, and we're going to cut off the ends. They make great boards for the ceiling joists because we have to cut off both of the ends, and a lot of these were kind of junked up and cracked on one or both ends.
On your end?
No, only.
Oh, it's cracked on my end.
I was gonna say only slightly on my end.
Skeeter, you're bad over here.
I know. I've already gotten bit like 3 times.
There's none up on the platform. This side's all cracked up too. Let's put it up there. We have about enough lumber cut to do half of the A-frames, or the lower part of the A-frames. So we're going to start laying them out now and get them nailed in and started. And then we're going to drag them out of the way and just keep piling them up until we have them out of our way, because right now we're kind of running out of room. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm marking it out for a bird's mouth. That way these have something to sit on and push against. When we stand them up, they're actually going to sit on a 2x8 that runs across this main beam that's in the floor, and it'll be securely attached, and any of the weight bearing down on these will be able to push out against this 2x8. That way that the walls can't spread.
We're officially done building half of the bottom half of the A's. The next step is going to be installing our 2x8 that goes along each of the edges and standing up this half of the A's, and then we're going to start building the second half. You need me to go down there?
Actually, hold on. Just rest it there for a second. What I'm doing here is I'm putting these stopping blocks on the end of the floor. That way when we stand up the A's, they'll have something to rest against, and one of them doesn't get away from us and completely just fall off the other edge. And it'll also help stabilize it until we get it all together. So they make a nice line. To walk it that way more, because like, see how you're not even, yeah, there you go. This is really the total opposite way.
Shoot, that's where our ceiling is? That's tall.
10 foot.
That's tall.
Yeah. I mean, imagine the view you're going to have out through there.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty crazy.
It looks really short laying down on this.
Huh?
It looked really short laying down on this.
Yeah, it does. We put in these temporary angle braces to kind of brace this up, and we set it at level, and now we're going to use this to base all of our other ones off with our blocking, and we should be able to just kind of run down and put the next 11 or 12 up pretty quickly, hopefully. We'll see what happens. Started, and then you're just going to get underneath of this, baby. Yep.
Mine just went in. Not in this. Ooh, that's like sliding. Slid almost all the way off. Yours go in?
Okay. Dry out, kid. Eat your Wheaties. Yours already in?
Yeah. My side might actually go in. My side's in. We're officially at the halfway point, at least for the bottom of our A's. At the bottom of each A, we added 2 structural wood screws to affix them to the 2x8, and we also installed blocking in between each of the studs. In case of any wind picks up until we can work on this again, we did add bracing across both sides, and of course it still has the bracing that we added at the beginning as well in the back. I don't think it really needed the bracing. It's pretty rigid as it is, but now it's definitely not going anywhere. It's extremely sturdy. It is about 11 o'clock at night, so we're going to head in for the evening and pick back up tomorrow. Good morning. We're back out here this morning assembling the rest of our A's. And since we don't really have room up here to stack the lumber like we did with the first half of the A's, we're going to move the rest of the lumber down just off of the platform. And we're going to assemble each of the A's and then put them straight up because we just don't have enough room up here. And they're also just too heavy to assemble down on the ground and pick up here, at least for me anyway. So I think that's the game plan for today. So let's get started. You ready to get to work, Nellie?
Unfortunately, a lot of this lumber is cracked on the ends. I don't know if it's from shipping it up here or if it's from the drying process. I would say probably 40% of it's cracked. So our 2x8s were really cracked, and what we're doing now is we're cutting our bevel into a 2x10 to make up for the part that was cracked that we had to cut off of the old 2x8. And the reason why we're doing this transition is because we want to match it with the slope of the A's. And the reason why we're doing that is there is going to be stringers coming all the way up the A's to create a hybrid vented roof. That way we don't get mold in our insulation, and it'll also prevent ice damming because it'll create a cold roof. When we were framing for our floor joists, we created the 6-inch beam on these outer edges, and we had a lot of questions about that. This probably makes a lot more sense now that you see the style of cabin that we're building. With this style structure, the majority of the load-bearing weight is going to be sitting on these outer beams. And these top plates that we're using with a bird's mouth to help secure the A-frames into, it needs to be securely fastened to something, right? So if we wouldn't have had those beams there, we would actually have almost nothing to nail these top plates into. They would have been screwed down into the floor. And you know, your floor, 3/4 inch flooring really doesn't have that much holding strength compared to what is bearing down on these A-frames. So that's why we actually needed those beams down along the sides here. And now that gives us something to really securely put this top plate in. Of course, if this was a regular cabin with straight up and down walls, this would be totally unnecessary, and we probably would have been able to get away with 1 to 2 ply for our outer joist.
Belly rubs. Belly rubs. You happy boy? You happy boy? We decided to change our plans a little bit. We initially were going to leave the pallet of lumber off the side of the cabin, but I think we have enough room here that we're going to put all of the lumber up here with the skid loader like we did with the last pallet, and then cut everything for the remainder of the A's, stack it back there, and that should leave us enough room to be able to build our A's up here.
Thought we were pretty much done cutting, but now we got to cut 22 more sections of blocking, and then we can finally put up the last sections of the small A-frames, or the lower A-frames.
We've got the template up here. It's screwed down to the subfloor, so we're going to go ahead and start building our A's and getting them stood up. Yeah. Oh gosh. Mine's in, so if you gotta pull yours in. My bird's mouth's not in. There we go. Perfect. Unfortunately, we got a little bit of a late start this morning, and it took a little longer than anticipated to measure, cut, and move all of the lumber that we needed for our A's, but we were able to get about half of the A's done that we cut lumber for today. We'll be able to get the other half done tomorrow, and then all of the bottom A's will be completed. The fog's rolling in super dense for the second night in a row. It looks really cool out here, but it is about 10 p.m. The temperature also dropped quite a bit. I think it was about 65 degrees today, and it dropped down to about 50 with all of this fog rolling in. But we're gonna head in for the night. We will see you again in the morning. All right, let's get the rest of these A's up.
We've got enough done now. We're going to put in some more angle bracing, just keep everything good and stiff while we're working on it and make sure it can't shift. What do you think right there?
Yeah, like one there and then one right next to it. We're finally ready to stand up our last A, and it's probably going to be the toughest one yet. Finally done putting up the bottom half of all of the A's. The last few were quite tricky. We ended up having to build some makeshift scaffolding up here where there's going to be a deck at some point and walk the A's up this way because there just wasn't enough subfloor for us to stand on and pick the A's up on. You may have noticed that this is only the bottom half of our A's, and that's because we decided to build this modularly. That way it was easy enough for Chris and I to handle by ourselves versus having to hire a crew to put up all of our A's or to rent a telehandler. All in all, this project was really manageable for just us two. There were a couple of different points that it was a little difficult, but we worked through it and we got it done. We do still have a lot to do for this cabin to be finished, but for now I think we're going to end the day with just some additional bracing on the end of the cabin as well as some screws along the bottom. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Is it fake sleeping?
That's a fake sleep. That's just deflection in the... It's pretty solid for not having any sheathing. And once we put those tie braces, those bracketry on the bottom of these are going to be so solid.
Yeah.
I don't think a hurricane will even rip it out ever.
Not that we get hurricanes.
Yeah.